It's time for the Onyx News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the Onyx News Podcast, Margie K.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Margie K, and this is Onyx News. We're here every Friday evening right here on the KUNXDB network. I have a really good show for you tonight. Can't wait to talk to my guest, but I do want to mention a couple of things first. Don't miss the MUFON Symposium coming up in Texas in July. They still have seats available. And of course, Robert Salas is the keynote. I will be there along with our producer, Race Hobbs. Come by and say hi at the Onyx booth there if you would. And we're also doing the Contact at Sea cruise in September. I will be a speaker there along with a host of really good top speakers. That's going to be a fun time. And then, of course, we have XCon coming up in Springfield this year, October 11th through the 13th. We have an excellent lineup of speakers and events for you. So please do check that out at unxnetwork.com. And of course, today I looked on the Onyx calendar because if you don't have one, you need to get one. I'm going to be creating a new one, so it's going to start in July this year. It'll be an 18-month calendar, but this year's has all the weird days in it, the national day. So, of course, today is National Monkey Around Day. Now, I'm not real sure what that means, but maybe Chris Jordan and I can figure that out. Welcome to the program, Chris.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. Glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me tonight, Margie.
Well, I'd love having you on, and we're going to get into it in a minute. But what is this about these weird national days? Do you know who created that?
I do. The gentleman's name is Marlowe, and I don't know that he's an Unex listener, but he is all over the internet. And yeah, it's interesting because they're getting ready to do, if I'm not mistaken, like a National Day movie. That's
really?
actually about like the way that national days work, and it follows kind of the idea of how National VW Day came to be, and it's one of the largest attended national days out there. But yeah, the National Day calendar is a thing. If you would like to sponsor a day, you can do it. This is no plug. I get paid no money by Marlowe. But it's pretty cool, the fact that like this guy had an idea one day in the early days of the internet that, you know, now that the world is connected the way it is, we should do like a National Day calendar where, you know, like National Secretary's Day, National Teacher's Day, things like that. So yeah, people find sponsors for them, all kinds of things. And huge companies come together to sponsor national days for stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
And there are a lot of weird ones. And so, of course, for the Onyx calendar, I put the strange ones in. But I don't think there's anything normal in it. But, you know, that wouldn't go along with what we do here. So, but let me introduce you. Christopher Jordan composes instrumental music incorporating everything from frequencies from within the solar system to binaural beats and even brainwave frequencies. His soothing and calming music is designed to help listeners relax, and each track is designed to be used as a tool for meditation and to help listeners reach deeper levels of relaxation and self-exploration. Creating music and soundscapes, Christopher's unique compositions have been used as background music for meditation albums, corporate events, as well as a unique series of meditation videos. With his compositions ranging from meditation and frequency therapy to avant-garde and even electronic lo-fi in his incarnation as the artist No Disassemble. Christopher, I've never heard of No Disassemble. Who is he?
I am no disassemble.
Yeah.
It is just my electronic music artist name. I'm a bit. If you look over my shoulder there on the tchotchke shelf, you can probably
Uh-huh.
see my little Johnny Five statue. My brother gave me that name years ago. I was a part of another duo that my partner ended up going on the road for work and was gone 3/4 of the year. And it was like, wow, who am I going to create music with now? Like I've always made avant-garde music, things like that, and always made therapy music. But my lo-fi music, things like that, it's a different creative process. And I enjoyed having a partner. My brother was like, no, you can do it on your own. You should do it on your own. Like you should call yourself No Disassemble because of all the circuits that you modify. Like I own a
Oh.
guitar pedal modification company, and I tear things apart and I rebuild them and redesign circuits and things like that. So
So
that's where the
really,
name came from.
you are Disassemble
Yeah.
to,
No,
to be.
I always
Yeah.
tell my wife, because she's like, for some reason, things just work for you. And I'm like, yeah, because they've seen what I've done to their brethren, and they know that they will end up stripped for parts if they don't like work.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
So
Yeah.
that's my explanation for why when something doesn't work for her, I pick it up and it immediately just goes. She's like, I don't know why that happens. Like, it's because they fear me. They know I will turn them into spare parts and build something else.
Well, that sounds rather mystical to me. I believe
It is
your energy is probably making things function.
it is fun to say the least. I mean, it's one of those. I have assembled things even when I was a kid, like 8 years old, Margie. My passion was invention. Like I wanted to be an inventor when I grew up. That's
Hmm.
that's what I wanted to do, was make things out of nothing. It's what I love doing. So now the fact that I patch wires together for a living, like even when I'm on the road working, whenever you see in social media groups like poorly describe what you do for a living, I normally say I get paid to travel and play with other people's expensive toys. Like I do audio video for a living. It's what I do
Hmm.
here in my studio for fun. Like it's not work for me. It's just what I love doing. So
Well, they
for
say
me, it's
you
all the
should,
creative process.
if you love what you're doing, you'll do it well.
That's
So
it. That's
there
it.
is some truth to that.
Oh, most definitely.
Absolutely. So, Chris, how did you get into music and electronics?
Music has always kind of been there in my life. It wasn't till I was in college, though, that I really started pursuing music as a really serious hobby. And eventually, through playing music, began recording my own music and began engineering music in live venues, things like that.
Hmm.
That is where my my love for arrangement, my love for composition, my love for mixing and mastering and putting things in different layers came to be. And very much the roots of what I do now, especially with my therapy music, because it is working in the subharmonic range and in the ranges that your body can feel but not necessarily hear. When you're
Hmm.
talking about something like the Schumann resonance, 7.8 hertz,
Yeah.
your ears hear from 20 hertz to 20 megahertz, 20,000 hertz. So that's like at least a couple of octaves almost below the range of human hearing. That's the range of a cat purr that you feel instead of hear.
Hmm.
So it's interesting understanding all that. And yeah, it was my love of music that brought me to the science of frequencies and things like that. And really my love of subliminal psychology for a long time. When I first found out about frequencies and the way that they worked with the brain, and even the idea of brainwave entrainment, um, I used frequencies like 19 hertz, things that are just below the range. Like that's one hertz below the range of human hearing. So just where you would imperceptibly be like, did you hear that? But it's also a frequency that resonates with people. It's the resonant frequency of the water in your eyes. So
Hmm.
it's where optical hallucination starts. with frequencies, and it's also the frequency that many people associate with paranormal and the feeling of something or an entity being in the room with you. So I would use frequencies like that embedded in my music thematically, to influence people in the way that they thought about the music and the way that they listened to the music. Um,
Hmm.
so it wasn't,
Interesting.
yeah, it was very much in a soundscape type way. Once again, I was big into subliminal psychology, and one of my favorite movies, still to this day, is The Exorcist. And a lot of that is because of the subliminal audio that's used inside of it. And really, it's not necessarily subliminal because it's mixed in, you can hear it, but it's reversed. The sounds, the guttural sounds coming out of Regan when she's possessed, things like that. The audio engineers used the sounds of like pigs and sheep being slaughtered, uh, and then played them in reverse to
Oh,
like
wow.
to feed off the human psyche and the fear of that. They used the sounds of like bees and wasps shaken in jars and played in reverse to help build tension, things
Oh,
like that, because your brain will actively decode that stuff.
mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting once you start delving into it. So yeah, the idea that they were using subharmonic frequencies, things that you aren't able to hear but influence your body, even to the point of like repulsion, disgust, things like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
it adds to the movie and it adds to the movie experience. So
So does
um
it affect your subconscious mind?
it can, most definitely. And that's one big reason, Margie, why we have active laws against like subliminals in movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like there once was a day and age, like I'm almost 50. It happened back in the 40s, things like that. But there was a day and age where as they played the let's go out to the lobby thing, they would flash a Coke label. Bam. And
Yeah.
oddly enough, they sold more Coke before shows started. Not Pepsi, not other products, just Coke. So yeah, like the idea that our brains can see that one frame out of 30, kind of like in Fight Club where the guy's putting
Right.
the inappropriate pictures into Bambi. But your brain sees it. Your eyes may have been deceived and been like, did I see that one frame? But your brain saw it and decoded it.
Right.
So
Right.
subliminal
Yeah.
frequencies, using binaural beats, things like that, or even frequency therapy, pure tone frequency therapy is very much along the same lines, where it's really more uh, regularity of exposure that brings your brain to be able to tune into a frequency. So frequency therapy would be kind of akin to the chakra that's spinning over my shoulder right now, where you have a singing bowl that is tuned to that frequency, and it
Mm-hmm.
vibrates through you as you hold it, things like that. Your brain definitely ties into that. Now, the difference between that and binaural beat is basically making your brain create that frequency on its own. So, whereas one is definitely working out, the other is like sending your brain to the hardcore gym on leg day, to figure out
Oh,
how
okay.
to do it. So, one, yes, if you put out a tone of, let's say, 528 hertz for love and understanding, and you
Mm.
have a singing bowl that's vibrating at that, your brain will tie into it, you know.
Now
Much,
I do have one of those bowls,
yeah,
and the first time I played it, uh, I was in my office. I had my assistant here, and my husband was here, and that just goes right through your body.
yeah,
It is amazing.
yeah,
The
it's
tone is incredible, and it's an experience. It's not just hearing a note. It is
yeah,
an experience.
yeah, it really is. And once again, that's one of those that will vibrate through you from head to toe. You'll
Mhm.
feel it go through you like a bolt of lightning. And now using that bowl, your brain will tie into that. There's a great concept, and this is what binaural beats works off of, is the idea of entrainment. The idea that if you and I, Margie, we aren't the same height. I'm sure I'm about 6'3", so
Yeah, no.
I'm sure our strides are slightly different. However, even my wife, who's a lady of smaller stature, when we walk down the hall, eventually our footsteps fall into sync. Our brain
Yeah.
wants that pattern. It
Yeah.
wants to tie into that pattern. So your brain will eventually, when exposed to enough 528, begin creating it itself. However, if you want to shorten that path, you can use binaural beats. And basically what that does is, by feeding one ear 529 and the other ear 527, it creates a wobble in your ears, and your brain eventually goes, wait a minute, I think you want the sum of these two, 528.
Mm-hmm.
So between the two offset frequencies, your brain actively starts creating the third frequency itself. It starts creating the target frequency on its own,
That's just amazing how that
instead
works.
of just tying into it. So it's pretty remarkable, the fact that yes, we can hijack that utter biological response of our brain, and it can be done to malintent. You can use frequencies
Mm-hmm.
to hurt people. We have all kinds of things for crowd dispersal, things like that use
Yeah.
very high gigahertz pulses that make your skin feel like they're burning, because of the high rate of pulse that's there. For those of you that don't know, a hertz rate is basically a calculation of pulses per second. So when you're talking like 7.8 hertz, that is 7.8 pulses per second. So it sounds much more like a click than a note or a tone at that point. Now, once you start
Mm-hmm.
multiplying that, and once you get into 528 hertz, that's 500 clicks per second. So it's much more like a steady tone to us than an individual beat. So
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting. Like when you get down to 90 hertz, that's about the range of slightly active heart rate. 86 is about a resting heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty interesting. One of my favorite drummers in the world is Neil Peart, or not Neil Peart, but the quote comes from Nick Mason from Pink Floyd. He said his drumming teacher always told him not to drum faster than your heart can beat, which is an interesting
Oh,
concept, because
yeah.
when you start listening to a lot of modern music, it's very, very, very fast tempoed music, and it affects you.
Uh-huh. Oh, it
It
does.
affects
It's
you.
very negative. I
Yeah,
can't be around it.
it
Yeah.
can, and like I used to work metal nights as an audio engineer, all kinds of things. There's a place for it. There are even great studies that show that, oddly enough, along with uh, classical music, metal music is one of the musics that plants grow faster and more lush, and because they're basically using the exact same scales as classical. They're using Mixolydian scales, things like that. They're just using them faster. They're just playing it
Oh,
faster. That's
yeah.
all. So if you slowed that down by about 2/3, you'd have classical music and Brahms, that kind of stuff. It's pretty remarkable. But that even goes to speak, Margie, of the frequency of things. The idea of speed, cycles. Going back to that concept of our eyes seeing at approximately 30 frames per second, between 24 and 30. That's what old television was at. There's a reason why our parents called it the boob tube, because yeah, given enough time, your brain will sync to that, and you will be in a slower response state. You will go into a state of
Uh,
hypnosis.
yes. Yeah.
So yeah,
Hypnotizing. Hmm.
yeah,
That,
and the idea of 60 hertz, what typically get, like I'm wearing filters right now against 60 hertz, which is fluorescent lighting, things like that. Our television screens now typically rest at 60 hertz because they're high definition. They used to be 30 frames per second. Now they're 60 frames per second. So your eyes get tired twice as fast, but you also go into a zombified state twice as fast, and you're twice as susceptible now to the commercial, and more susceptible faster. So yeah, it's strange. Once you start doing video math of the frames per second, it is exactly a multiplication of our brainwave frequency and the frequency at which our eyes see. So even now, most HD 4K television is done in 120 frames per second. That's your brain goes into your zombified hypnotic state 4 times faster than it does on analog television.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, watch out, folks. Don't watch TV anymore.
Yeah.
They're brainwashing you.
Or just make sure that you're watching good stuff.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Like my mother, God bless her. I remember years ago, she used to be so worried because I ran sound at night. I wouldn't get home till 2, 3 in the morning. You know, like nothing good happens past 11 o'clock.
Right.
Which, you know, nothing good in the world. It's like, well, yeah, you're watching the news in Houston, Texas. As you go to bed at 10 p.m., you may have some unsettled sleep. You know, like it's pretty much a body count. Like it's the news from Houston, Texas at 10 p.m. Like they aren't giving you happy things, but it's funny that that's what we watch as we go to sleep. That's the last thing we give our brain is something like that, Margie.
Yeah, for most people, yeah.
And it, just when you're talking frequency in general, the idea of our brain is a filter, and much like any good filter, we need to give it time to clear. We need to give it a break from information. You know, like if you've got a sieve sitting at the bottom of a rain gutter, given enough rain, that sieve will overflow and not do its job. So
that's a good analogy. Yeah.
That's kind of what our brains are up against on the daily, between the electronic fog of frequencies that we live in, between Wi-Fi, cell phones, everything else, even the electronics around us, between the fact that we're almost driven to a panic state by most of what's out there in the media. You know, it's pretty remarkable that most of us are functional human beings.
Yeah, when you say it like that, yes. We've got a question in chat I want to get to real quick. In your opinion, what's the best frequency to attain goals and success?
Honestly, I cannot recommend 7.8 hertz more than anything. 7.8 hertz, the Schumann resonance. Get yourself regrounded, people. Start there. The fact of being regrounded to the Earth's frequency, the Earth's heartbeat, that is the heartbeat of the Earth, is the Schumann resonance. So the more tied in you are to that, the better decisions you're going to make. You know, the less driven by full passion you're going to be. Be a passionate person, but don't make your decisions like that. You know, like it's interesting once again to see just how off kilter so much of our society is because of the speed at which we operate, Margie. You know, we didn't used to operate like that. Even my grandparents, when they grew up, unless you had a fat light or a lantern, it was dark when the sun went down. They didn't have television. They grew up in rural Louisiana. They didn't have like electricity. Like they had a kerosene lamp, things like that. When the sun went down, they saw stars. You know, they were connected to the earth in a different way than we are right now, all of a generation and a half later.
How can people be exposed to the Schumann resonance?
One of the easiest ways to do that is, once again, cats. Cats are great for it. The lower end of their purr, if you can have one purring on top of you, it's a fantastic way to do it. But you can buy small Schumann resonance generators for about $20, things like that. If you're handy with some electronics, you can use a 555 timing circuit and build one for about $15 of parts, things like that. Aside from that, naturally, it is going out and exposing yourself to raw earth, feed on the earth. Go lay down under trees, things like that. Get yourself retied kinetically to the earth itself.
Take your shoes off and stand on the ground.
Yeah. And especially if you have a kid, I'm a big proponent of let them run barefoot. Like let them have as much contact as they can with the ground until they want to wear shoes, or until they have to, like at school, things like that. Like I don't think I'd put shoes on my kid unless it was like, let's go to a restaurant, or unless he was going to daycare. Aside from that, it was like run barefoot, be connected to the earth, know what it feels like, know it intimately.
Good advice. Okay, we are up on a break, and we'll be back after about 3 minutes.
All right.
The Onyx Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Kathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full-spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes, made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the Onyx Network website at onyxnetwork.com. That's onyxnetwork.com. This September 6th through the 13th, join with like-minded souls in the experience of a lifetime on the Royal Caribbean Ovation of the Seas as we travel from Seattle to Alaska. Internationally renowned researchers, investigators, experiencers, authors, holistic healers, contactees, spiritual luminaries will sail on an extraordinary voyage of transformation. This cruise will explore UFOs, alien contact, cover-ups, ancient mysteries, the paranormal, holistic healing, and spirituality. Experience engaging lectures, one-on-one sessions, private, custom-tailored excursions, and a nightly UFO watch. The cruise is booking up fast. Go to contactatsea.com and be sure to mention the Onyx Network when you book. That's contactatsea.com or phone 336-749-1219. That's 336-749-1219.
back. I'm Margie Kay, and this is UNX News. We have Chris Jordan with us this evening. And Chris, I want to shift gears here for just a minute and
Sure.
talk about your Curious Realm podcast. Why did you begin that, and when did you begin that?
It began under a different moniker many years ago, Margie, and it began because I realized that aside from people who wore black for a living, other AV technicians, things like that, that I was missing conversation in life. I was missing conversation from people of different backgrounds, people of different mindsets. And so I began a show at that point called Dudes and Beer, where the idea was didn't matter what we talked about. It was myself and two other people from different walks of life who got together, talked about topics, and agree or disagree, we were going to keep a conversation going. And next week, we were still going to be friends. And it eventually morphed into deeper, thicker conversations, guests, things like that. And me being on the road for work most of the time. So I rebranded things and it became the Curious Realm. And now we have conversations about still deep, hard topics, things like human trafficking, targeted individuals, that kind of stuff. Just worlds of research that many people may not be aware of. And I see it as my job to help demystify topics, things that for average listeners, for regular people who don't research for a living, that don't like for a long time, even in my career as an on-air producer, my job was finding guests, looking up topics, reading news articles, compiling information, things like that. And I realized rapidly that is not everybody's job, Margie. Like most people don't swim in the waters of news and information almost 24/7. And for a while in my life, that's exactly what I did. So being able to bring on guests, kind of like the conversation that we just had about the recent announcements from Stephen Greer, and being able to have Kathleen Martin on to respond to that, to open a conversation across the aisle. Because, unfortunately, I proudly wear the badge, capital S skeptic, Margie. I am a believer's believer in all of these topics. However, because my belief is there, my realm of evidence has to be larger. My realm of what I consider evidence. And like I say on the show with my air quotes up for those out there that are just listeners, evidence is what clears you in court. Evidence is what exonerates you. Evidence is what sets you free. So unless that picture with the circle on it is something that you would give to your lawyer and say, keep me out of prison for life, you may want to reconsider calling it evidence. You have a point of datum to add to the data set. So demystifying things like that, where it's like, let's get to the root of this. Let's get to the root of a conversation and be willing to reach across both aisles, from the aisle of a hardcore researcher to the aisle of a hardcore believer, and meet in the middle somewhere, because somewhere within that science that a hardcore researcher is following is their own doctrine as well. And they're following their line of thinking and processing because of what they believe, Yeah. And it really does take that open-hearted, empathetic understanding that, we're all doing what we believe, and what we believe is right, Margie. And the beautiful thing about America is we all have that God-given right to wake up and make any stupid decision we want.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. We do.
It literally starts with that. So,
we have free will.
And we have to be willing to have a conversation without trying to convince somebody of our paradigm. We have to get back to a point of trying to understand what somebody believes and just seeing that as a beautiful facet of the gem that is that person. You don't have to buff the facet anymore. You don't have to polish it to the way you need to see it shine. Just accept the fact that that's a facet on the gem that is that person, you know? And I think if we did that across all communities within this, we would get to different answers about a lot of things. We would get to a much more empathetic understanding from across both aisles. You know, one of the topics I bring up regularly is the idea of Bigfoot and portals. I am a believer in portals in Sedona, things like that, energy vortices, all kinds of stuff. I'm also a believer in the fact that there is a large hominid species roaming the woods of North America and beyond. However, when you bring them both up in the same encounter, now you've got something different, because which side of the unknown spectrum do you start investigating that experience from? The portal or the cryptid?
Right.
You know, because now
Exactly.
you've got two phenomena occurring at the same time, and you may get researchers who are like, no woo-woo allowed. And you may get researchers over here in the paranormal, in the portal section, that are like, no cryptids allowed. You
all
know,
woo-woo.
and where it's all woo-woo. And it's like, we somehow or another, if these things are crossing over together, if these phenomena are appearing at the same time, we've got to be able to have a conversation together.
Yeah, we do. We do. Chris, have you had any personal paranormal experiences?
I have. I've had a few. The one that always comes to mind, one of my first ones, I mean, really the first one that I ever even remember, is I was probably about 4.5 years old. We lived in Crosby, Texas, and we lived in a tiny little trailer house. Behind us was Miss Pat. And I would go while my brother was at school and help Miss Pat collect eggs, things like that. She'd watch me and my brother, all kinds of stuff. Between our house, from what I recall, this is utter recollection, between our house was a rusted swing set. And I remember looking out at Miss Pat's house one day and seeing a dark figure standing next to the swing set, beckoning me to come out.
Oh.
And I don't know, I mean, to me, it was the devil. Like it would be the quintessential devil, Margie. And once again, I don't know if it's a trope that popped in my head from a deviled ham commercial in 1978, 79, you know, who knows? But that is my first vivid experience of something giving me the chills that wasn't on TV or anything like that. Where I was genuinely afraid of what was outside that window. And that would be the first one. That would be the first one. Aside from that, I had quite a few experiences with shadow people, especially in a sleep paralyzed state. And one instance within a sleep paralyzed state where a shadow person actively grabbed me.
Oh, really? You physically felt it?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was hands down one of the most frightening experiences of my life. I could not move. I could not respond. I couldn't do anything but result to the knee-jerk reaction for me was my connection to the universe, my God, if you call it that, what have you. I started praying. And eventually got to a point where I could move and things dissipated and went away. And it was strange, but that was even a huge breaking point for me faith-wise, Margie. I mean, I spent my first year in college studying as a Catholic seminarian. Like and that was because of what I truly believed to be a religious experience where I was bilocated to a place of eternal love and joy. It was absolutely amazing.
Wow,
so
sounds like it.
When I went to my spiritual director at the time with the shadow person grabbing me, they didn't really have an answer and told me that the church didn't really have a teaching on it. Um, and that
Hmm.
disturbed me. Like I own a copy of it right over my shoulder in the bookshelf is my copy of The Rite of Exorcism. Like I have those books. I have that stuff. So I know that there is something in there. Is there something in the big green book, the catechism? Ah, you know, um, but man, it was a big crisis of conscience for me and a big spiritual awakening to something larger than the scope I had been given and the chest of tools that I had been given to build and create my spiritual world with, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, that began a lot of esoteric searching in my life, a lot of really beginning to understand different aspects of spirituality, different paths of spirituality, different esoteric truths, different things that many teachings even in the Catholic Church were based on, you know. So yeah, it was very much a huge eye-opening experience for me and something that led to what I would think and truly believe is a watershed moment in my life of truth and wisdom that took me down a larger, bigger path.
Well, yes, I don't believe in coincidences, and I think we all have a path or a job to do in
Yeah.
our lifetimes. And I do want to get to, I want to play this
Yeah.
excerpt of one of the pieces you sent me. It's called Acoustic Cinematic. You want to tell us what that is about and how you made
Acoustic
that?
cinematic. Um, which
That's
is
what
that? Hmm.
I think that's. Let me
Experiencer?
see. Oh, experiencer. Here we go. Here we go. I have a whole list
No
here.
worries.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have tons of them like I do.
Yeah. So, what is this?
Experiencer is my latest album of binaural beat therapy music. I started a series called Music for Targeted Minds. The first one was made specifically to help alleviate the symptomology of those that are targeted individuals, people that believe themselves to be targeted by things like Havana syndrome, that kind of stuff. This is volume two, which is made to help those that have experienced trauma from UFO abduction, ET experience, close quarters contact. Um,
Mm,
One of the things that I speak about regularly, especially with vibration, Margie, is the idea that experiences like this are very much like getting a watch near a magnet. The watch may work, but it will always be slightly off. A paranormal event when it happens to somebody, specifically when you're in the realm of technology and frequency technology that it would take to warp space time, to travel far distances in small amounts of time. That is a massive range of frequencies that you're dealing with, and that can be hard to once again retune yourself to the world around you, um, much less to be able to get rid of the PTSD, to be able to see yourself as a normal person afterwards. So many people, it takes them years sometimes, as I'm sure you know with your work with people,
mhm,
takes them years to process these traumatic events, and to be able to get to the depth of what this event actually means for them in their life. So this album Experiencer is made specifically to help retie those that have been through these traumatic events, through these close quarters, close contact um, events with extraterrestrial entities, extraterrestrial technology, back to Schumann resonance, to bring them back to a point of love and understanding in their life, to help release some of the trauma that they may be holding on to from that experience.
mhm. All right. Well, let me go ahead and play a little bit of
Please.
this so that everybody can hear a sample. it actually thinks it's playing.
Oh, it's in there.
Okay, I just wanted to give people a little taste of that. Now,
Absolutely.
what?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it. I'll tell you what it does to me. It just did it
Please.
again.
Please.
Vibrates my brain right in a line, right in line with the psychic center and third eye. And it's I can physically feel it inside my brain.
That is incredible and awesome to hear. Thank you so much. That is huge compliment, especially from someone like you that does as much meditation and work with people in that realm. Sev Talk said the same thing, that it
Uh,
was something that moved her to other realm, and that's kind of part of the purpose, is to help people realize the fact that that this should be shifting them to another frequency. These experiences are meant, and they can be frightening because they're paradigm shaking. Margie, the turn of phrase that I have lifted from Kathleen Marden and Earl Grey is ontologic shock. It's the idea
mm,
that when it happens to you, everything that you know to be is rocked and changed. Everything is different
yeah.
at that point. And you can't necessarily go to family and friends with it because everything's different. And it can be hard. It can be hard for people to be able to come out and talk about their experiences, to be open with them. So um, I help. I created this to help people be able to process that, and to be able to get over some of those fears, and to be able to get back to, I guess, normal functioning uh, amongst people who may not understand what they've been through.
I can see how this music, these creations would help a person mentally. Uh, I mean, because I could feel it instantly.
Mm.
What about physically? How does frequency affect the body physically?
Frequency affects the body very, very much in the same way that it does our brains. There are numerous studies showing rapid healing in burn wards, things like that, specifically with frequencies that are based in octaves of uh, 7.8 hertz Schumann resonance, things like that. Once again, we are swathed by frequencies, and our whole body, specifically our brain is just a big salt and fat transducer living inside of a big resonant chamber. Like it's ready to receive all of these things. And what's interesting is we see a very, very small slice. We see and hear a small slice of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Hmm.
Um, Very, very tiny slice of it all. And when you start looking at that, when you start considering what we actively see and hear, um, Like here is a chart that I normally use right there.
Hmm.
These are all the frequencies from 1 hertz all the way infrasound, down there, what whales use to communicate, between 1 and 10 would be, once again, that Schumann frequency, that Schumann resonance. But where you see light on there is is what we see. Like there is a huge vast universe out there that we do not see and hear, that's literally right adjacent to us
And affecting us.
and affecting us fully. No different than the moon's gravitational pull is affecting us via distance. No different than right now the sun's solar cycle that's going haywire. Like, all of these things affect us, because when you start looking at it from a very ninth grade science point of view, Margie, we are not here. We are a conscious vibration, each one of us a unique conscious vibration. That vibration is attracting, much like the vibrations on anything will attract things to it. We are attracting matter right now. You and I, despite distance, by all known physics, we're sharing an electron shell.
Hmm.
That's just physics. So yeah, the idea that we ourselves are vibration, we are moved by vibration, we take part in that. It's pretty remarkable when you start looking at people like Maureen Seberg, the author of Fearfully
Yeah.
Bade. She is a tetrachromic. She's somebody whose eyes not only see red, blue, and green, but yellow. So she has an entire million other colors that her eyes can see and process that ours cannot.
Hmm.
That's remarkable to think about how she sees and processes the world in a different way, in a totally different way, simply because of the vibrations that she is sensitive to. Even
Yeah.
myself saying that um, you see color with music, things like that, synesthetics, very
Yeah.
much the same thing. You know, it's your brain being vibrated in a different way than the average listener.
It is, and as a person who sees vibration, I see each person I see vibrates at a different rate. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is when a group of people gets together and they're vibrating at a high rate, and let's say there's one person that comes in the group and hangs around them for a while, their rate of vibration goes up too.
Mm.
It's so interesting to watch.
Yeah, it is very sympathetic, and I've said for years, we are all accountable for the vibration that we drag into a room. We're all accountable for
Yeah.
that. And a lot affects that. We may not even I was on an interview not too long ago. Um and I guess it was probably about a year ago almost, whenever I released my chakra meditation album. And I had somebody tune in who had purchased the album. They were a Reiki teacher, and they were like, I was listening to the Muladhara track, the first one, the root chakra, and got like physically moved emotionally, like started weeping for like 40 minutes and could not stop. And I don't know what that was about. And I'm like, well, seems like you maybe have something that you've just kind of like tilled over in your garden. Like, even though you're a Reiki master and meditate every day, things like it doesn't mean that you didn't like just glaze over something as you were moving along. Like we all tend to do that. So there may have been something that happened that it just rang your bell, and you'd been okay until something hit you that deep. So look
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
And that's just it, Margie. We all, despite our adeptness at being spiritual, despite our adeptness at you know being psychic, clairvoyant, remote viewing, what have you, um we all need a leg up. We all need a little bit of help. We all need to be able to unplug sometimes and return to that root note that we're all a part of, you know?
And what you're doing is another tool to help us get to where we want to be. How can people get a hold of your music?
The easiest way is my website that's on screen right now, artofchristopherjordan.com. If you're a Roku user, actually, the Art of Christopher Jordan is where you can go and purchase all the albums. That's where you can go and purchase the video meditation series. There's a whole set of 7-hour-long videos for each chakra that's available for sale. All kinds of things. There's also my free Curious Realm Roku app. So if you're a Roku user, there's some of the meditation music available there as well. You can find samples, decently long samples, about 10 minutes long, of all of my hour-long meditation tracks on just about every platform out there. So even though you can buy the hour-long track for about $20, you can buy a 10-minute sample for the average of like $1.50, something like that. So if it's something that, you know, you just want to try out, feel free to visit Spotify, whatever. Just look for Christopher Jordan.
All right. Will do. Thank you so much for being on the program. We're definitely going to have some more to talk about because we're just reaching the tip of it right now. I do know that much. And as a musician, I'm very interested in this. I'm going to listen to your entire album.
Well, I can't wait.
And I'll definitely report back. Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for listening tonight. I'll see you here again next week.